Sometimes a revolution isn't crushed by an outside force. Sometimes it just turns on itself. Today, we're diving into one of those moments, a single event where India's nationalist movement, right when it was gaining serious momentum, suddenly fractured and basically set the cause of independence back by almost a decade. So let's set the scene. It's Surat, December of 1907. The Indian National Congress, which was the leading voice for independence, is holding its big annual session. The hopes are incredibly high, but, well, the tensions are even higher. And then it all just explodes. The whole session completely collapses into a full-blown riot. I'm talking 1,600 delegates screaming at each other, people are throwing punches, chairs are literally flying across the hall. A shoe gets famously chucked at the stage, hitting two of the main leaders. It gets so bad, the police have to storm the building just to clear everyone out. The Indian National Congress had just very, very publicly imploded. So you have to ask, right? How on earth did it come to this? How did the single most important nationalist group in the entire country literally tear itself apart in front of everybody? Okay, let's get into it. Now, this split didn't just happen out of nowhere. It was the result of this deep ideological divide that had been simmering for years. On one side, you had the old guard, the founders of the Congress. And on the other, you had this new, younger, and way more radical generation. And this table really lays out just how different they were. The moderates, they believed in slow, gradual reform. Their game plan was petitions, cooperation, trying to persuade the British. The extremists, though, they wanted Swaraj, total self-rule, and they wanted it now. Their methods weren't polite petitions. They were talking mass agitation, boycotts of everything British, and they wanted to take this fight to every corner of the country. To them, the British weren't persuadable rulers. They were an enemy that had to be kicked out. And this quote right here from the moderate leader Gokhale, it tells you everything you need to know about their mindset. They were cautious, pragmatic, and honestly, they were scared. They truly believed that if they pushed too hard, the British Empire would just crush them in an instant, and they didn't think the movement was ready for that kind of fight. But look, this caution wasn't just strategic anymore. It had hardened into real hostility. I mean, listen to the words being used here. Diseased limb, surgical severance. The moderates had started to see the extremists not just as colleagues with different tactics, but as a genuine cancer on the movement that had to be cut out. But here's the twist. This wasn't just a two-sided fight. There was a third player in the game, working from the shadows to turn these divisions into an all-out split. The British colonial government itself. And you don't have to guess what their plan was. Years before the split even happened, the Viceroy, Lord Curzon, said it plainly. The official British policy wasn't just to manage the Congress, it was to destroy it. And they saw this growing rift as their golden opportunity. So the British came up with this brilliant and pretty cynical three-step strategy. It's often called the carrot and the stick. Step 1, put a little pressure on the extremists, just enough to freak out the moderates. Step 2, offer the moderates the carrot, dangle some political reforms, make them feel like their cooperation is actually working. And then step 3, once the moderates are on your side and the extremists are all alone, you crush them. Completely. And the truly tragic part? It worked like a charm. Neither the moderates nor the extremists really saw the game being played. They were so focused on fighting each other that they walked right into the trap the British had so carefully set for them. So, the dust settles in Surat. The moderates won control of the Congress. But as they were about to find out, it was the very definition of a hollow victory. Yeah, you don't have to guess who the real winner was. The Viceroy at the time, Lord Minto, said it himself in a letter back to London. He called the chaos at Surat, the Congress collapse, a great triumph for us. Their strategy had worked even better than they'd hoped. With the moderates looking the other way, the British immediately moved to step 3 of their plan. The crackdown on the now isolated extremists was swift, and it was brutal. Their newspapers were shut down. Their most popular leader, Tilak, was arrested and exiled to a prison in Burma for 6 years. Other key figures, like Aurobindo Ghosh, just quit politics altogether. The entire radical wing of the movement was basically decapitated. And what about the moderates, the supposed winners in all this? Well, they quickly found out that their victory was actually their undoing. With the extremists gone, the British had absolutely no reason to listen to them anymore. They were completely sidelined. Without that energetic, popular extremist wing, the Congress just fizzled out. It lost all its momentum, its connection to the people, especially the youth. It just became this small, powerless club of elites with no real leverage. The reforms the British had promised, they were tiny. And why not? The threat was gone. As someone at the time put it, the spirit had gone out of the Congress. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, the Surat Split is a classic and tragic lesson in the real price of disunity. At the end of the day, it all came down to a fatal miscalculation on both sides. The moderates completely failed to see that the threat of the extremists was their single greatest bargaining chip. The British only listened to them because they were scared of the alternative. And the extremists, they didn't see that the moderates, with all their talk of rules and constitutions, were actually a protective shield, protecting them from the government's full power. They needed each other, and they couldn't see it. And I don't think anything captures the aftermath better than this quote from Aurobindo Ghosh. After he got out of jail, he said he listened for the cry of a hopeful nation, but there was just silence. A hush had fallen over the entire country. All that vibrant, hopeful energy was just gone. And that political silence would last for years. The whole movement was put on ice. And that leaves us with a final question, doesn't it? The story of Surat is over 100 years old, but its lesson feels timeless. It forces us to ask, in any movement, in any struggle against a powerful opponent, what's the real price you pay when you let your internal fights become the main event? What happens when you spend more energy fighting your allies than your actual adversary? It's something to think about.